I'm going to speak a little bit about the Valley Line LRT and one specific aspect of the LRT, which I think is, really the sexy part of LRT is the urban design and the integration with the urban environment. I'm just going to move the mic a little bit closer here. So I'm going to start off with the video. This is the YouTube video that is actually embedded in the city's website. And, I was thinking about this not too long ago because I share this video with anybody who wants to know about what the project about. What do you do? What's this project about? Well, you just kind of can send them this clip. And this clip wasn't developed by IBI. This was actually developed by the city in their sort of precursor process and the public consultation process. So it's a video that tells you a little bit in a nutshell what the project is about, where it's located. And I think rather than having me sort of drone on about and try to describe where it is, this is a really good kind of indicator of, some very key project elements and sort of in a nutshell what you need to know.
This video was created at the end of preliminary design and incorporates public feedback. Some elements may be subject to change. Welcome. You're one of the first passengers on Edmonton's Valley Line LRT. Next stops, Millwoods, Grey Nuns, Millbourne Woodvale. We're following the 13.1 kilometer southeast section of the line. We've just left Millwoods Transit Centre, a busy spot for transit users, and we're heading north along 66th Street. Here you can see the low-floor train traveling with ease through an Edmonton snowfall. Now we're at the Grey Nuns stop. Nearby is the Grey Nuns Hospital, one of two hospitals that will be closely served by the new Valley Line. On a winter day like this, passengers will appreciate the heated stops and stations throughout the line. And on to the Millbourne Woodvale stop, still traveling north on 66th Street. We'll continue heading north past the Millwoods Golf Course and White Mud Drive as 66th Street becomes 75th Street. Next stops, Davies Station and Avonmore. Here you can see the Jerry Wright Operations and Maintenance Facility on the right, named for a city councillor who helped pioneer Edmonton's LRT system. We're heading north on 75th Street and taking elevated track into Davies Station, the location for the Davies Transit Centre, Park and Ride, and Kiss and Ride. There is the potential for transit-oriented development here in the future. As you can see, accessibility for everyone is one of the strengths of low-floor LRT. This elevated section of track continues, taking us west from 75th Street to 83rd Street before it continues north at street level into the residential areas beyond Argyle Road. Here at the Avonmore stop, notice the organic-style canopies on the stop shelters. This design was chosen by Edmontonians through the Valley Line's public engagement process. Next stops, Bonnie Doon, Holyrood, and Strathern. Still headed north on 83rd Street, we're next to the Bonnie Doon Shopping Centre, which is close to seniors' residences and includes a library and health services. It's an important and central location for residents. Just north of the shopping centre, you'll see the developing Bonnie Doon Campus Park on the right. Now we're at the Holyrood stop, traveling north on 85th Street. We'll travel west along 95th Avenue to the Strathern stop. You can see how well low-floor Urban LRT integrates with these established neighborhoods. Note the embedded track being used in residential and commercial areas. We're now heading down Connors Road into the North Saskatchewan River Valley. Next stops, Muddart, Quarters, Churchill, and 102 Street. Now we're at the Muddart stop, next to the Muddart Conservatory. This is the final stop south of the river. From here, we cross the river on a new combined LRT and pedestrian bridge, which replaces the existing Cloverdale pedestrian bridge. We're getting a transparent view of the tunnel, which takes us from the riverbank to a portal just west of 95th Street, along 102 Avenue. Here, the LRT returns to street level on the south side of 102 Avenue. The general design of the tunnel portal, streetscape, and stop were chosen through close collaboration with the local community and highlight the historic and cultural heritage of the area. We're approaching the Quarters stop, part of the city's planned Quarters redevelopment. Like all stops and stations along the Valley Line, the Quarters has been designed with pedestrian-friendly access in mind. Continuing west along 102 Avenue to Churchill Station, we're now in the heart of Edmonton, surrounded by City Hall, Winston Churchill Square, Citadel Theatre, the Alberta Art Gallery, and the city's main public library. Note the bike lanes being introduced on 102 Avenue. This new infrastructure will connect with existing bike corridors in the downtown area. In this location, riders can go directly underground and make the connection between the Valley Line and the existing Capital LRT line running northeast to south, including a stop at the University of Alberta. The Metro Line to Nate is also under construction here. It will connect with MacEwan University, Royal Alexandra Hospital, and the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, starting in 2014. The federal and provincial governments have been important financial partners in building Edmonton's LRT network. Still on 102 Avenue, heading west, we reach our final stop today, 102 Street, outside Edmonton's popular city centre mall. When the 27-kilometre Valley Line is complete, it will continue west from here, past Misericordia Hospital and West Edmonton Mall to Lewis Farms Transit Centre. Thank you for travelling with us today. More information can be found on edmonton.ca/valleyline.
So luckily I didn't have to talk about that. It's really amazing that it was snowing in Mill Woods, and then when you get downtown, and that lovely river valley was all green. I just wanted to show a slide of the overall system, and of course the Valley Line is going to be sort of the important next step of a different type of LRT system for the city. So these are all the routes that are approved by council and some of the existing lines. I just want to share some quick facts about the Valley Line LRT. It is a low-floor urban LRT system. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to today in Edmonton and also other cities in North America. So it's right now we have a suburban system that's operating with a higher platform. This is a low floor and more, I would say, community-oriented type of system. The leg length is for this part of the Valley Line LRT, which is called the southeast leg, is 13.1 kilometers. And then, of course, the future extension of the LRT system is going to be to the west. It's going to go by Meadowlark and Misericordia Hospital on to Lewis Farms, so that's the next leg of Valley Line LRT. And then this, of course, as you know, is a public-private P3 partnership. And phase one of this project has been recently awarded to Transed Partners. IBI Group is part of that group, where we have, we've come together to design, to build, and operate the system for a period of 30 years. So it's a little bit different than what we've seen before in the LRT development that the city has seen thus far. Key Transed partners include a group that are the Construction Joint Venture Team, Ellis Dawn, Bechtel. Fengate Capital is part of the economic team. Bombardier is the car provider and the rail provider. Arup Engineering, Associated Engineering, and IBI Group are coming together as the key designers, where Arup is provides the project management functions for the project. IBI Group, as our office, we're leading the work on the urban design, the station design and integration, facility planning, landscape architecture, and the traffic signal design for this project. So we have, amongst our firm, IBI Group, we have people working across North America on this project. And I happen to be landed in Edmonton. Edmonton, in particular, our Edmonton office is leading the landscape architecture and urban design work. Our project team, there are literally hundreds of people working on this project right now. We have people in Seattle and Vancouver, all over North America, working on this project, as well as people overseas. Arup Engineering is also a very large international firm with a lot of people that have rail expertise in other countries, such as Dublin and Shanghai and other places like that. So we come together as a team more in a virtual sense than actually a physical sense for this project. Just stepping back, this project didn't start in February. It started a long time before February when we were awarded this project. The City of Edmonton, when they initiated the process, as well as, in concert with the consultation with the public and City Council, established a reference design. I think that really provided the key design elements and the key items that had to be addressed throughout the process. So it was, the reference design for this project was actually completed by a group called ConnectEd, and I think some of my colleagues are here from Dialogue and ISL and other firms. They started the project long ago and worked very hard to come up with a reference design that provided the foundation for the next stages of design for this project. The capital cost of construction is $1.8 billion, so it's Western Canada's largest infrastructure project, and in fact it's in the top 10 in North America, so it's a very large project. In terms of the contribution for funding, City of Edmonton contributed $300 million, Government of Alberta $600 million, Government of Canada $400 million, so there's a lot of players and partners. And again, it's going to be making a very significant economic impact on the city. And the P3 includes the building, the design, the operation, the maintenance, and also providing some capital for funding of the project. So that's basically the structure of the project. This project was approved in February 2012. And this just gives you a sense of the timelines. 2013 is when a lot of the work had been done by others, and the project was awarded to us in February 2016, which is this year, and we, literally hit the ground running. It's almost like a 24/7 project. The design is well underway. It's going to be completed largely by 2017. And in fact, you can see construction that's underway right now. Some of the clearing of the trees in the river valley. You see houses being moved out of the way and trees being moved and certain works being done in the river valley in particular, getting ready for the bridge construction and construction and laydown areas for that part of the construction. This system is going to be operational by 2020. So when you think about where we are today, and by 2020 we're going to have a system that's operational. That's why there's construction starting already. I want to talk a little bit about what Urban LRT is, because it's a little bit different than what we're used to in Edmonton. It operates really largely at the street level, at the speed of traffic. So it's not going to be really high speed. If people think it's going to be zipping you really uninterrupted at high speed, that's not going to be the case. The idea here is really to improve the connection between the rail system and the neighborhoods and the communities and the whole life of the city. So it's very direct, and it's more connected to pedestrians and the people that live in communities. So it is really mostly at grade. So there's not a lot of underground portions to the rail. And in these types of systems, the stops are spaced actually closer together. The idea is to have the stops close enough that you can walk to them. They become part of the community. They feel like they are integrated better with the community. There's a great emphasis on providing a safe environment. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about today is visual appeal. And the city is making a significant investment in the urban design and the aesthetic important issues for this system. And there is going to be, reduced speed, so it's not high speed, and that the idea is really to support the communities and also the pedestrian activity around the communities. Sustainable integration, urban integration, is something that we have acknowledged that it's a 24/7, every day, every hour idea that we're thinking about. And this is something that came from the City of Edmonton. And they gave us a definition, and they said, you have got to think about this. And it means a focus on mutually supportive integration for the system into the urban context within which it exists. And we picked apart, when we were going through the initial stages of this project, we really had to sort of pick apart that idea and think about what does that actually mean. It became important, very important to us when I visited the city's LRT office and I saw it actually written on the wall at the office. So we know that it's important, and I actually take a picture of it, and if one of my, are there any engineers here? One of my engineering colleagues comes up with something that just doesn't sort of fit the SUI idea, I send a picture of that little saying, don't forget about SUI, that's actually on the city's, somebody hand wrote it on the wall. So, we understand that that's really important. So the idea is safe, efficient, it's really convenient for the passengers. The city wants it to support the city's economic prosperity, which means, the idea is we're going to live in these safe communities. People want to live in the middle of the city, so that we're going to have this diverse economic prosperity that comes to the middle of the city. It's not all about suburban development. And then, we understand that the underlying policies of transit-oriented land uses are going to be there. And then this is all consistent with the city's strategic plans. So the goal is support the sustainability and resilience of the city. And these are some of the ideas that the key values that don't come from us. These come from the city, where the pedestrians are first. We all know about the cities, the way we grow, and all that sort of thing. But also, how did all of these ideas integrate with the system? And then, I think the city is also looking for the system to be sort of flexible and adaptable over time. So I think in that way it sort of acknowledges that there's going to be communities that change around the LRT system, and how do we link into that? With the SUI, and I'm just going to say SUI now because it's a lot easier to say, we are looking at many different components of even more than what I had initially thought when we thought, well, what is sustainable urban integration? We are looking specifically at the light rail vehicles, what they look like, how do they integrate. I mean, you don't want sort of clunky looking vehicles traveling through your communities. They've got to look good. They have to be understood that they're ETS vehicles, that sort of thing. There are a number of character zones and opportunity areas that were identified earlier in the process by the city. So each community has a different look and a different feel, and we understand what that community is about. Downtown is different than Strathern, that is different than Mill Woods. So it's understanding those. Again, looking at all those urban realm items, and also looking at how this is going to be sustainable over time, and sustainability from a construction and also from an operational point of view. We're going to be looking at things like lighting. How do we make this safe? How do we make this visible for people that are using it and looking at it? How it's branded. How do people recognize that this is a City of Edmonton system, and the colors and where the logos are located? It's those sort of details. Support systems and stations and stops are going to be very, very important, because that's where the community meets the rail system. Structures, bridges and ramps and all those sorts of things. Davies Transit Center is another important one. The operations and maintenance facility, you saw that on the one of the views. It doesn't look like that at all. It looks something quite different right now as the design is progressing. Landscape architecture, the city has certainly directed a very, very strong investment in the green infrastructure for this area. And there's also a whole bunch of things like, waste receptacles, street lighting, all kinds of things, and also public art. How we're sort of working through SUI is it's this don't forget about it every day methodology that we're employing. So we're integrating it throughout the process. We have a number of processes and checks and balances and checklists and criteria that we're working through, and we have strong contact with the ongoing city project engineer to ensure that everything is met. I'm just going to point out some key, just with some visuals because they're easier to talk to. The 102nd Avenue Streetscape is going to be very, very important to the city's downtown. The design, the strong reference design is something that we want to keep. These reference designs that were completed earlier in the process don't have all the detail attached to them. So, as we all say, the devil is in the details. We're working through on being true to some very elegant reference designs, and we are working our way through, how do we coordinate the stuff in the street? How do we put the light poles all in the same location, which is a big topic of discussion, is how do we coordinate all of that? Because there's poles and utilities and all kinds of elements that are associated with the system that have to be all coordinated on the streetscape. And in fact, on 102nd Avenue, I think it was discovered that you actually can't put trees anywhere in the streetscape because of so much conflicting design elements and rail requirements and utilities. So here we have a design that doesn't have trees but still has planting elements. We're looking at the stops. Every stop is going to have a slightly different character. Strathern may look like a little bit like Holyrood, but a little bit different because each community has its own identity that we will embed in the design. So we're looking at that. This is one of my favorite ones. It's a snowstorm at Holyrood. And it was really one of the important things, and one of the things that we discussed a lot early in the process is because we're working with very, very diverse design teams, they have experience all over the world. And then when they look on the map and they see where Edmonton is and what happens in our winter environment, they really have to add another layer of thinking on how we deal with our winter climate in particular to Edmonton, because it is a little bit different than places even like that have snow, like Denver or Montreal or other places like that. So certainly there's it's not a one-shoe-fits-all approach to winter cities. We are employing some fairly detailed, fine-grained detail with the light rail vehicles. So that was part of the pursuit phase of the project, is just identifying the type of Bombardier vehicles that are going to be used and what the branding might look like and what they look like inside and what the carpets are going to look like. There was a tremendous amount of detail that was actually presented at that time. We're looking at vehicle arrestors, and those are the end of the line key elements that have to be integrated. How are they integrated? How do we plant them? How do we put? You can't put planters at the end of them because the cars crash into them if they can't stop, and there's all kinds of things to think about. So we're looking at how we integrate those into the community along with specialized paving patterns and that sort of thing. We are looking at such details as wayside enclosures and these enclosures are the little boxes all over scattered. It seems like they're scattered everywhere, and they include power equipment and other elements that are critical, and they're found everywhere. So we have to look at, well, how do we fit them in? Where do we place them? How do we wrap them? Could we make them a part of some sort of art statement? We're looking at a number of, I think there is 11 or 12 utility complexes. So there are actually buildings that have traction power equipment in them, and they turn into, they have roofs on them. They're actual buildings, and they're found everywhere along the corridor. So we have to find a way to integrate them. And again, the city has directed a very specific and a very I would say pointed way to integrate more landscape, and also encouraging the investment in good design and good design detailing. The Davies Station Park and Ride site is really a huge site. It is got the elevated guideways that bring the train system into an elevated train station. It's pretty visually significant. There's parking for over 1,000 vehicles, and this is all going to be built and implemented such that people will use this park and ride area as soon as the system is opening. Also we're thinking about how we integrate the buses with the actually linking all the parts of the transit system together. So we're linking them all together at one spot. So the buses meet the light rail vehicles, and how do we get people to move between the two? And sort of establishing also the strong bicycle and pedestrian connections that you need to have. This is in the middle of an industrial area, and really it's going to set, I think, a new design tone for this very sort of heavily industrialized area of the city. With the stations, we have looked at quite a number of things on how we're integrating the guideways, how the guideways meet the station, because really that's how the cars come in. We're looking at safety cues, barriers, how the drainage from the roof, what does that look like, and how does it connect, and how is it hidden so you can't see? How do we make this building really at the end of the day quite beautiful? It's integrating the screens, it's integrating the advertising. One of the key parts of this building is the requirement for a wood underside for the roof. So it's got a very sort of warm and less industrialized sort of feeling to the building. We are also looking at how the public art is going to be implemented. Will there be public art glass? Will there be sculptures? There's a lot of places along the corridor line that are going to have very significant investment in public art. And then of course we're looking at various landscape elements for the station. Even looking at the interior of the station on how the signage is arrayed, the wayfinding, accessibility, how people sort of get on the cars, what the floor surfaces are, what the lighting is. So there's a lot of details with these buildings that we're looking at. There's a pretty significant ramp structure that is in this sector of the line, and you can see there's a little arrow pointing out where we're going to have public art implemented on a ramp. And the Edmonton Arts Council at this point in time has a number of public art calls that have already gone out to artists. So they're looking at different things like mosaics and murals and other sort of maybe three-dimensional treatments for quite a number of areas, stations and stops, ramps in this case, in the interior buildings, Churchill Connector, which is in the downtown area. That's going to be a very significant pavilion that might have some sculpture. But the Edmonton Arts Council is leaving the details up to the artist. So when they go for an art call, the artists actually identify what they want to do. So the Edmonton Art Council's role in this project is to just sort of go through the proposals and manage that process. The Tamatina Bridge or Tamatina Bridge, and I know there's actually another way to pronounce it from our Aboriginal friends that were at our art meeting a couple weeks ago, which I can't replicate. But the Tamatina Bridge has a significant art, that's a significant art project in itself. It's, I think it's $250,000 worth of public art is going to be going on the bridge, so that's the most significant art piece, and it's Aboriginal National Art Call that's underway. So we're just in the process of specifically identifying areas that the art can be located at. But the Tamatina Bridge is really an important part of the system in terms of SUI. I think it's intended to be really the signature for the Valley Line LRT. This is where everyone crosses. This is where, you know, if you have the hockey night in Canada helicopter hovering, they're going to be hovering probably over this bridge with the skyline in the background. So it's certainly widely recognized that that's going to be a very, very important element and a very important SUI element that we have been studying. And also understanding, you know, how the bridge looks like at night is something that we had looked at. As well as what you see from the pedestrian user standpoint. And in fact, this bridge, you probably have been hearing some news reports about what's going on with the Cloverdale Bridge. Well, in fact, the Cloverdale Bridge is going to be coming down in favor of a bridge that serves both the pedestrian and LRT function. So if you look on the bottom, underneath the girder of the bridge, there is actually a shared use path that follows the underside of the bridge. So you're going to have a very, very similar experience to the Cloverdale Bridge, but unfortunately the Cloverdale Bridge has to come down to allow this bridge for the construction to start on this bridge. So that of course has been fairly controversial, but we all understand that I think from a sustainable urban integration point of view, the city did want to see that these functions were integrated in a really elegant way that really makes a strong design statement. And I think at the end of the day, it sort of unclutters the river valley. If you would have had both bridges there, and it would have been a bit of a visual clutter to the river valley, so that was important. And then also the landscape architecture part of that. We've done quite a lot of work to start the design process for the various, 13 kilometers of trees and shrubs and perennials that are going to be found along the way. So that design is well underway, and again, the city is directing a very, very significant investment in the landscape. It's certainly well above the city standard that you would typically see for streetscape and roadway type of landscape. And again, I was just alluding to the public art. There is a very, very significant public art component to this project, and the city again has directed that some very key areas be addressed for public art. Specifically, every station and stop is going to have some form of public art on it or by it. And then, of course, they've identified the bridge that has some significant components. So that whole commitment to public art has been, I think, really started at the onset of the project, and certainly has been identified as being very, very important. So, in summary, I think, what I really wanted to speak to was what we term as urban design or sustainable urban integration is very, very important to this project. And the city, I think, has set the tone very, very early and set the bar very, very high for this project. And I think what they're thinking is they want this design to be responsive to the communities, responding to the people that use it. Maybe even if you don't use it, you'll recognize that it's going to be it's going to be integrated in a very, very important part of the urban fabric of the city. And that it's got this very sort of coherent and uncluttered sort of design aspect to it that really incorporates this whole ball of items that we're looking at today. And it's some very, very simple things like selecting the pavers that people walk on, to coordinating the poles that are required for the equipment, and then also the little wayside little boxes along the way. So it's just all these things that I think we have to sort of work our way through, and in some ways sort of make sure that we have that always in the background of our design and conceptual planning for this project. It's something that it's a very, very different way of doing design, because often engineers are over here and architects are over here, and the urban planners are over here and the landscape architects are over here, and they often don't speak and they don't talk to each other. But this is very mandated. The process has been directed, and it's very, very clear what we need to do, and we're certainly going to find a way to do it. And it's a very, very, in a lot of ways, a very unique way to approach a project. And it's something that I think is going to be implemented for years to come in other projects for the city.